ESPN Plus Team On. Oh my God. Epic stories. The largest streaming TV library. And can't miss sports. Are better together. Get all three for $12.99 a month.
I figured something out. I wanted to use my real camera. Putting it there, and I had to look on this small screen on the video camera. But see if I can get one of these. It's optics in there as well, so it's not just a pipe. Violent little sucker. Got a small body here. Oh, where did you go? There you are. Team friends and small moves. Hey, stop it. There's some energy. Let's move around and see if we can find something else. A lot of energy. Let's back out. Ooh, focus. Oh. There's a dude. Let's go in. Where did you go? You were here just seconds ago. Thought I saw another one.
The FBI has re-released a series of photos that document the horrific terror attack at the Pentagon on September 11, 2001, which left 184 people dead. The 27 photos document the aftermath of the attacks, including images of the building's exterior, interior, overhead views, and images of first responders who rushed to the scene. American Airlines Flight 77, traveling from Dulles, Virginia to Los Angeles, was hijacked by Al-Qaeda terrorists who struck the building at 9:37 a.m. Eastern Time on September 11th, killing both passengers and Pentagon workers. Images include the Pentagon still on fire, first responders at work, debris from American Airlines Flight 77, the interior damage of the Pentagon, exterior damage of the superstructure, including the flames still raging, and aerial images from news helicopters.
How can we ever forget Tuesday, September 11, 2001? A nightmarish vision that left us paralyzed, stunned beyond belief, helplessly staring at our TV screens. How can we ever forget that Osama bin Laden and his Al-Qaeda terrorist network attacked America on its own soil, devastating its very symbols of economic and military might? In New York, the Twin Towers ripped apart by 2 passenger planes. Flight 93 entered a profound place in history when it became known that the passengers took on the hijackers. They literally sacrificed their lives, helping to provoke a crash in an abandoned field. Thanks to them, the terrorists missed their target. Then there was Flight 77, symbolically the most devastating blow dealt to America. The terrorists targeted the Pentagon, completely destroying a portion of the U.S. military's headquarters. We still know very little about Flight 77. All we've had to go on are rumors, falsehoods, and conspiracy theories swirling around and influencing public opinion. The most common and outlandish of them all, no plane ever crashed into the Pentagon. And so Flight 77 has remained in a tangled web of history, and a favorite game of those who make their living off of the world's woes. The commemorations of September 11 allow us the possibility of setting the record straight once and for all, not to engage with conspiracy theorists, but rather to talk about the cold, hard facts, and for the first time ever, give the final word to the victims, their families, their loved ones, and all of those people who investigated Flight 77. "7 a.m., Tuesday, September 11, 2001. Thousands of people crowd into the terminals of Washington Dulles International Airport. Passengers checking in and boarding their flights. It's just another busy day at Dulles, with the exception of one small detail. At the airport's security checkpoint, the bizarre behavior of a group of men catches the attention of security agents. These men are held for further screening. But as international terrorism is still a rather foreign notion to America, security agents are not prepared for what is unfolding before their very eyes, and they fail to pick up on the warning signs. Despite the presence of knives in their hand luggage, the group of men coast through the screening process, then quietly blend in with the other passengers and board American Airlines Flight 77.
Toughness. Okay. Not seeing her lights. Testing view. Low speed aileron. Normal home. Rudder travel pitch speed. Aye. Nav exterior light. Servo control. Aye.
The 5 Saudi-born men board the plane with a very precise objective: to take their seats in economy class alongside the majority of passengers. And the other 3 settle in first class, seated strategically near the cockpit. The 5-hour flight was set to take off at 8:10 a.m. Destination, Los Angeles. The captain of Flight 77 was Charles Burlingame. He would have turned 52 on September 12th. Before becoming an airline pilot, Burlingame was part of an Aero Naval Force flying fighter jets, an early passion that his sister vividly remembers.
Chick grew up loving airplanes. I've got a picture of him as a baby holding an airplane. The first plane he built was as a 6-year-old. He built it all by himself. He was a very small little boy from scrap lumber that he found behind the alley of our house in England, where we were stationed for a while. And he built it as a surprise to my parents.
Sarah Miller Clark was seated at 25D. Sarah was a geography and mathematics teacher at a middle school near Washington, D.C. Divorced mother of 2 children, Sarah had a new lease on life and was engaged to John Milton Wesley, a songwriter. On the morning of September 11, 2001, John and Sarah got up at dawn to enjoy an early breakfast together.
And we talked briefly about what time she would call me and the fact that she was coming back the following Saturday, and she had left a jacket on the door, on the closet. And I came in and I saw the jacket, a yellow jacket, little London fog, as a matter of fact. And I picked up the jacket and ran out to try and catch her, and she had already gotten past the stop sign, and she was gone. So
Sarah was chaperoning a group of children to Santa Barbara, California for an ecology conference sponsored by National Geographic. Photos were taken just before boarding, taken by officials accompanying the group to the airport. These were probably the last photos taken of the passengers on Flight 77. "22D and 22F, 3 rows in front of Sarah, are Darlene and Wilson Flatt. They were both 62 years old. Darlene was a teacher. Wilson was a pilot and officer in the U.S. Navy. Wilson and Darlene are now retired, and the couple takes the opportunity to travel. Destination, California.
He was a great person, larger than life, 6'4", 230 pounds. We'd go out working on the farm, and we'd work all day together, and he would just bury me, and I was doing everything I could to keep up with him. So he was very strong. But once people got to know him, he was pretty much a teddy bear, but he was very intimidating at first glance.
And your mom?
She was sweet. Like I said, she could take care of everybody and do anything, and she picked up everything. She was incredibly smart. She was a Mensa, and very gifted, very talented. She could take a pile of junk and turn it into a piece of art that everybody would want.
3 rows in front of Wilson and Darlene, Norma Sterling, seat 19D. Norma was a psychologist. She was 54 years old. The mother of 2 children took Flight 77 to join her husband Eugene, who was currently in Asia.
Well, I was in Singapore. I was actually doing some work for the International Monetary Fund. My wife had decided to visit my daughter for a few hours before they both came and joined me in Singapore. So, in fact, she had switched flights near the last minute so she could spend those few extra hours with my daughter.
Karen Ann Kincaid was in seat 15D. Karen was 40 years old and married. She was a lawyer and law professor in Washington, D.C. She had always been very close to her brother.
She was a strong woman. She left our small town of Waverly and ended up in Washington, D.C., but she never forgot where she came from. Karen was doing work in Los Angeles for her company, her law firm, although she was actually scheduled to be on a different plane. One of her colleagues requested that they switch, so Karen took that plane.
Sarah, Darlene, Wilson, and Karen, and there were others on that Boeing 757, a retired couple from China to visit their daughter, a political consultant to CNN, a humanitarian doctor from Ethiopia on a return mission, managers, bosses, American airline employees, officials based in Washington, D.C., and newlyweds Robert and Sandra Plugger, who were headed to Hawaii on their honeymoon. A total of 53 passengers, plus the 5 Saudis and the 6 crew members. At 8:20 a.m., Flight 77 receives clearance for takeoff, 10 minutes behind schedule. But just as Flight 77 takes off, the Air Traffic Control Center in Boston is faced with a crisis unfolding several hundred kilometers north of Washington, D.C. A Boeing 767, also belonging to American Airlines, Flight 11 to Los Angeles, had taken off a few minutes earlier from Boston Logan Airport and had just been hijacked. It is 8:24 a.m. as Flight 77 reaches cruising altitude. The control center is receiving a message from Flight 11. We have several planes. Stay calm and everything will be fine. We are heading back to the airport. Nobody move. Everything will be fine. If you try to make the slightest gesture, you will be putting yourself and aircraft in danger. Just remain calm. 10 minutes later, 8:34 a.m., the second message. Nobody move, please. We are headed back to the airport. Do not try anything stupid. For now, only the FAA, the Federal Aviation Administration, is aware of this crisis. Otherwise, air traffic is continuing as normal. There is not yet an actual state of alert. No warning either at the Pentagon, the headquarters of the U.S. military, the nerve center of the Department of Defense. The day is just beginning at the Pentagon, where thousands of employees, civilian and military, are already at work. Among them, David Tarantino, a 35-year-old Navy officer.
Well, it started like any ordinary day. I made my way into the Pentagon, but it was an especially beautiful day that day. The sky was crystal clear, and it was perfect temperature, and a day where you think twice about, do I really have to go into work, because it was so nice out.
It was a gorgeous day that 30-year-old Navy Lieutenant Darren Pontel was about to enjoy. Married for 6 months to Devorah, his night shift was ending in just a little over an hour.
He was a very kind person. He had a great sense of humor. He was quite funny. He liked to have a good time. And he loved being in the Navy. He loved his work. He was an intelligence officer. He had worked aboard a ship, the USS Eisenhower, for a couple years. And he loved just everything about the Navy, being with pilots, working in the intelligence